I brought a friend along with me to help me, so I'm going to ask her to do a little introduction for me.
Hello, I'm Joan Rivers, and I'm backstage at QVC, and I want to tell you all about my friend Larry Ferber, okay? We met, I think, in 1990 when he was my executive producer, and in the 5 years that Larry and I worked together, we never had a crossword. How about that? But I want to talk about the other celebrities also that Larry has worked with, okay? People like Regis, Dinah Shore, Mike Douglas, Gary Collins, Dennis Miller, Sally Jesse, I mean, on and on and on and on.
I get in the car one morning, and the drivers are all Yentas. And I get in the car, and they had taken Joan to the airport. We were not shooting that day. They had picked Regis up, and then they were picking me up and taking me to the office. And the driver said to me, "Oh, I told Mr. Philbin I was picking you up, and he left you a message." And you know how when you go to in these cars, they'll put your name on a tag and on a sign. So anyway, Regis wrote on the back, and he said, "The Ferb," which was his nickname for me. He said, "This town is not big enough for you and me. Get out of town." And he said, "I'm proud of you." And over the years, we always had a glorious relationship. So, have you ever heard Betty Davis sing? Allow me.
Goodbye. No use leaving without chance. This is where our story ends. Never lovers, ever friends.
So let me tell you what happened. While she was doing this, I'm sitting in the green room with Jane Fonda and Robert Wagner, one of the show's writers. And when Miss Davis finally finished, 4 minutes later, she was still lip syncing and the song was over. So, Dinah Shore being Dinah Shore, whoops, sorry Betty, we've heard enough, thank you. While we were sitting there, Dinah said to her, in the gazebo, which is the area of the set that they were in, and Dinah said, "Well, Betty, tell us what the song means to you." And she said, "Well, Dinah," because she just could smoke in those days, she said, "I want it played at my funeral so my children will have a good cry." And the writer who was sitting next to me said, just loud enough for everybody to hear, "Well, at least she won't be able to lip sync it." The other thing about Mike was that if he said, "I want something," the senior producers would like jump. You know, they'd been with him a long time and they wanted to be there. So at one point he said to us, we were in a briefing, and he said, "Sly Stone, not Sly Stallone, but Sly from Sly and the Family Stone, he's got to make a comeback. It's got to be big. I want him on the show next week." So of course we booked Sly Stone. I'm working with him. And one thing about Mike that was very enviable is the show was taped, but if he said, "I'm starting, the show starts at 1, it started at 1. The train left the station. Guests there or not, he went on. Well, Sly Stone wasn't there. And one of the two producers, had a hot Italian temper, and he's like yelling at me saying, "Where is he? Go find him. You've got to find him." And I'm looking all over CBS Television City. Do you know where I found him? He was online for The Price is Right. We mentioned Julia Child. She did the show, and indeed, I think I'm 14 now. I did cook with her. What was interesting about the segment too is she brought Paul. Those of you who saw the movie Julie and Julia, she brought Paul with her, and it was the first time on the air that she ever actually talked about the fact that they were in the OSS together. So it was really kind of a cool thing. I met Bette Midler many times during my career, and I'll share one instance with you. This was at Our Magazine. She had a children's book out, but I met her when I was a page on The Tonight Show. Pardon me. And she came on. She was brand new. She was red hot, and she did the show a number of times when I was there. This particular time, she came out and she sang Leader of the Pack with the Harlettes in a cutout Dodge convertible. And the audience went wild. So then she sat next to Carson, and he said, well, how are you tonight, Bet? And she took her shoe off and banged it on the desk and said, Johnny, I am so stoned I cannot sit up straight. I wanted to share this with you because this is a personal moment. This was a Thanksgiving dinner at Joan's house. As you can see, it was very casual. And during the years I worked with her, I would be at her home for Thanksgiving, Passover, any major holiday, I was there. I'll also share with you that I was present at Melissa's wedding. Now, Melissa's wedding, I've been to her, I'm sure we've all been to some spectacular weddings. It was held at the Plaza Hotel, and the reception area, the ceremony area was the Palm Court, if you know the Plaza. She redid the Palm Court. It was all white. And if you remember, up above there are two balconies. So one had a classical quintet and the other had a group from the Gay Men's Chorus of Manhattan. And Joan being Joan, when it was time for her to come down the aisle, the doors closed, the doors flew open, and the Gay Men's Chorus broke into Hey Big Spender. We're on hiatus, and it's the last day. We're at some spa somewhere in Connecticut, and this is pre-cell phone days. So they said, Mr. Ferber, you have to call Miss Rivers. She's been calling all morning. So I called her, and it's like, she's really angry. Larry, I am so angry. I talked to Dorothy, the manager at the time, and she told me it was starting on, I don't know whatever the date was, September 7th, and I was told it was September 15th, and I'm not starting then, and what are we going to do about this? And I said, let me call Tribune, and I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, my daughter. Hangs up. And I know her really well at this point, so I called her the next day, and of course she's fine, and I said, you know, once they lock the date, it's locked. So what's the problem? She said, I wanted a new face for the new season. And I was quiet, and I said, what if you did it in mid-October? And she said, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I said, yeah. She said, it's brilliant, I'll do it. We did it for the show, for the November sweeps. It was so popular. What we did is the producer stayed there the entire week and took still photos of her recovering every day. She's had it done so often that the following Monday, she was healed. 1 week. And she opens the show wearing a beekeeper's helmet. And then does the reveal. Well, the show was so popular, it made the cover of TV Guide. Making the cover of TV Guide gets you an extra 1 million viewers. Miller was not my favorite guy, let's put it that way. He came in one day and said, I watched your other show this morning. My other show is how we refer to Joan. He said, she was funny. I said, well, what show was it? He said, it was one with Leona Helmsley. I said, oh, I remember the show, it was a rerun. It was Leona Helmsley and Alan Dershowitz at the height of the tax evasion scandal that she went through. And there was Joan, and Leona was very teary, crocodile tears, and she said, Joan, I don't know why they persecuted me like this. I didn't kill anybody. I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. And Joan looked at her and said, we don't know that, Leona. We haven't checked all the hotel rooms. I had met with Sally and the executives from Universal who owned the show at the time.
Sally's top 10 most notorious bad boys list is Brent from the show Sisters Confess I'm Sleeping With Your Man. Brent appeared on our show with his pregnant wife Jenny and her sister Angie. Angie was having an affair with Brent. Take a look.
Angie and I started off just as friends, okay? She started confiding to me about her fiance and how she was going to...
Oh, wait, Angie is your sister.
Correct.
I don't know about you, but I've seen enough. At any rate, so I wound up doing this trash for 1.5 years. These were Sally's producers over the years. You can see how happy I am. I told one story, which I will share with you, and that is that with the guests, one of the things the producers had to ask was, do you have a picture of you smiling? And if the answer was no, the next question was, do you have front teeth? And if the answer was no, we would fly them in, send them to a dentist on the Upper West Side, and shove teeth in their mouth. So I told that story on this show. And one of the Universal executives came up to me and said, we had to edit you out. I said, excuse me? He said, it was a taste problem. I said, you're telling me about taste with this crap? I threw him out of my office. I threw him out.